Good evening, Professor. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about Sikhism. Um, the book, Religions of Asia Today, I think it gives a nice overview of, exactly what Sikhism is. It gives a little bit of the history of it. It gives some of the principles and some of the governing concepts of exactly what the religion is. But I think that the Lopez book is a good complement to the Religions of Asia text. In that I think it gives a good meaning, a more personal meaning behind the origin of where the religion really came from. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the some of the meaning behind why Sikhism is the way that it is. So to begin, the Sikh faith really begins with Guru Nanak. He was born in 1469 and he was raised as a Hindu in a predominantly Muslim area. This gave him a really unique outlook, not just on religion, but also on life and spirituality, and all of those types of things. So, as he was growing up, he realized, in 1498. He had a profound mystical revelation, and he realized that there really was no such thing as Hinduism or as Islam. He realized that God was not going to be either Hindu or Muslim. And he was asking himself, who should I follow if God is not going to be Hindu or Muslim? Which of these religions should I follow? And he chose to follow God. He didn't want to be part of either one of those religions. He just really wanted his path to follow God. So that was what he chose to do. And for the next 20 years, he lived as a pilgrim, and he really kind of wandered the area, and he spread his beliefs and his teachings about what he really thought God was. I actually read that he's one of the most traveled men in all of history, that he traveled tens of thousands of miles, spreading the word of God over the course of 20 years. And while he was traveling, most of his time he was devoted to spreading the word of his theories and his philosophy about God. And he very rarely talked about where he came from. And his followers, they didn't accept that. They wanted to know, who was this man? Where did he come from? And what made him the way that he is. So his followers created a series of stories called the Janam Sakis. And these stories were really kind of, I guess you could say that they were equivalent to like a Christian parable, and that they were a story, but they also, they had a meaning behind them, about how to best live in God's image. So I wanted to talk about the meaning behind some of those stories. Um, so what exactly does Sikhism mean? So the Janam Sakis, like I said, were a series of stories that really kind of gave some insight into what was the guru thinking, and what was he trying to teach us, but with through these lessons. So one of the first stories that I thought was kind of intriguing was the story of him when he was in the river. So he was in the Ganga River with a large group of Hindus, and he was watching them splash water towards the rising sun. And just kind of facetiously, he began to splash water in the opposite direction. And seeing this, the Hindu worshippers, they asked him if he was a Muslim because he was, splashing his water in the direction of Mecca. And he said, they said, well, why are you splashing your water that way? And he said, well, why are you splashing your water towards the east? And the Hindus said to him, well, we're splashing it, towards our ancestors who are in heaven. And, Guru Nanak looked at them and he said, well, will it get there? And they responded, yes, it will get there. So, the Guru said, okay, that sounds good to me. So he started to splash large quantities of water towards the shore. And the Hindus, kind of confused, looked at him and said, well, why are you splashing water towards the shore? And he looked at them and he said, well, I'm going to water my field that's back at home. My crops are withering, so I'm watering my field. And they looked at him and they said, well, how can the water reach your field? And he replied with, well, how is the water that you're splashing going to reach heaven? And I really thought that was kind of poignant. It was really a good teaching to tell these people that the ritual that they were partaking in, it really didn't have any meaning. He told them the truth and he explained exactly how hollow this ritual was, and it didn't really have any religious value. What they should really be doing is focusing on loving and respecting and taking care of, families and friends while they're alive, rather than performing these useless rituals for the afterlife. When people die, they don't need anything from us, and we can't send them anything. What we should really be concerning ourselves with is what type of good deeds can we do while we were here? What type of change can we affect while we're here? Because those are the types of deeds that are going to be judged, when we're faced with God, in the afterlife. So the next story that I liked was the story of the robber. So, the robber was actually, he was sitting up on his perch, and he would sit there and he would steal and he would rob people. And, he was basically just an evil person, and he was doing this to provide for his family. And one day, Guru Nanak was walking by, and the robber, came up to him and he said to him, give me all of your clothes or, I will kill you. And, the Guru looked at him and he said, even though you're doing these evil deeds, even though you have the noblest of intentions for these evil deeds that you're committing, will your family and your loved ones who you're doing these evil deeds for, will they stand by you, if you are ever being judged? And he said, go ask them. He said, I'll stay here, you go and you ask them and you find out whether or not they would support you if you needed them. So the man left and he went to his family, and he asked them if they were going to support him in his evil ways, and his family told him, no, your evil deeds will be your companions. So how you act in this life is how you're going to appear for your judgment before God. We're not going to be there with you when you're being judged by God. So, the man ran back to the Guru, and he said, he prostrated himself before him and begged forgiveness. And Nanak, he forgave him, and he told him that, what we do in this life is empty and meaningless if it's not going to help our judgment in the next life. So make sure that whatever you're doing in this life is worthwhile, because in the next life, that's what you're going to be judged on. And the last story that I really liked, that I thought was pretty interesting, was the story of the mosque. So, Guru Nanak fell asleep in the mosque with his feet towards the mihrab. So the mihrab is the niche in the mosque, that faces Mecca, and it's considered the location of God, and it's the direction that Muslims face when they pray. And he fell asleep with his feet towards this particular niche in the mosque, and the attendant came to him and said, how dare you, how dare you be blasphemous by, falling asleep with your feet towards God. And, the guru looked at him and he said, well, my feet pretty much, like, they fall where they may, they fall wherever God is not. And, the man said to him, all right, well, then I'm going to move your feet. And when he attempted to move his feet, he noticed that the mihrab moved in whatever direction he would move the guru's feet, which, and then he looked at him and he said, okay, well, this guy's pretty special. This guy's obviously some type of a god. And the lesson here was, it doesn't matter which direction you're praying, to facing God, that God is everywhere, and you shouldn't have to pray in a specific direction in order to best live in God's image. So I thought that was a really poignant story. And, I thought that, the meaning behind that is, God is everywhere. And again, these rituals that you're partaking in are really kind of meaningless in the afterlife. You should be more focused on things that are going to benefit you when you're being judged by God in the afterlife. Okay, so, how did Sikhism really kind of, impact the culture? So, the Guru Nanak's teachings drew a lot of people to him. And he didn't believe that, he believed that there shouldn't be a caste system. He really believed that, all people were equal, and that, people should be treated with respect and compassion. So, with that being said, the Sikhs didn't really subscribe to any of the Hindu Vedas. So some of the more noble Hindu caste members really kind of looked down on the Sikhs, thinking them not true Hindus because they didn't subscribe to the Vedas and they didn't really subscribe to the caste system. But that was just the type of person that the guru was. Him and his disciples ate communally. They ate in a communal kitchen. He really didn't want there to be any type of segregation between him and his disciples. And also on that note, he really believed that women deserved respect and religious equality. The Sikhs believe that, these pilgrimages and rituals, they really don't have any spiritual effect. The things that we should really be focusing on are respecting women, respecting our fellow man, and, living in equality, and not living in this separated hierarchical society. And then, so, lastly, to kind of, finish up, how does this really, kind of tie into, some of the other, aspects of the, of the religions of Asia text? I really kind of thought that it might not necessarily specifically be passing over, but I felt like a lot of the concepts that Guru Nanak was incorporating into his teachings had aspects of both Hinduism and Islam in them. So while he didn't necessarily have a home religion that he went to another religion and then returned to, he kind of took all of the best aspects of the religions that he was exposed to and really kind of made them his own and made them into his own religion. Much like Dr. King and Gandhi, really kind of, how Dr. King really used Gandhi as an influence for his nonviolent, civil rights protests. Guru Nanak was very similar in this regard. He actually, he preached equality, and whether someone was Hindu or whether someone was Muslim, that shouldn't really matter, because at the end of the day, God's going to be judging you on how you treated your fellow man, not how you worshipped or ritualized, to best, please God. So, he didn't really subscribe to any one particular religion. Like I said, he really kind of took the best pieces from, from everything that he was exposed to, and that was really, what he kind of made Sikhism into. The gurus that followed him really kind of took the principles that he established and really gave them a stronger. They really reinforced it and gave this religion a really a good belief system. And he was the foundation. All of his teachings were the foundation for this strong belief system. In fact, when he was asked if he was Hindu or Muslim, he would often answer ambiguously. Sometimes he would say that he was Hindu, sometimes he would say that he was Muslim. But at the end of the day, I was saying in some of the earlier slides, he really just wanted to follow God, and he didn't need the label. Which I really respect. That is that he didn't want to put a label on what he was. He wanted to live his best life. And so, these beliefs were the foundation of Sikhism. These are the beliefs that still exist today. They believe in social equality of all people, regardless of caste, race, creed, or gender. And that's pretty much it. That's really what Sikhism is. And I think of all of the religions that we learned about, this one, while I think a lot of religions can be very exclusionary because of the way that they're designed and because of the rituals and because of the labels, this particular religion seems to kind of do away with all of those things. And while I think that the organization of it and the doing away with all of the labels kind of becomes the label or becomes the ritual, I think that of what we have learned about, this one seemed to be the most inclusive. And I really like the aspect of people being included in groups. I think that one of the reasons that religion is could suffer is because it has an exclusionary aspect to it. And I think that all people should be treated equally, and I think all people should be given a chance to be their best person. And I think religion sometimes could spend a little bit more time welcoming people in and telling them how they can be better people, instead of telling them what they're doing wrong. And I think Sikhism really kind of said, follow these principles and you'll be a better person. We're not going to tell you what you're doing wrong. As long as you kind of follow what we're laying down here, you'll be considered a good person. So that's my presentation. I hope I was able to, give you some insight into my thoughts on Sikhism. And I guess if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me and ask me any of those questions. Okay, I thank you for your time, Professor.